Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to do a follow-up to an episode we did yesterday talking about Disney's Doctor Who and the future of Disney's Doctor Who and the damage control being done. And now we have Den of Geek doing damage control for Doctor Who too. They're saying that you can't believe everything you read about Disney not being happy with Doctor Who because the BBC says it's fine. And we did that video yesterday. You can check it out. And the BBC says the numbers are great. They're very happy internally with the numbers at the BBC. Trust us, bro. Doctor Who's fine. It's better than ever. But Den of Geek now saying that Deadline, I think it was Deadline, that reported Disney was not happy with the numbers on Disney Plus for Doctor Who. That they felt like they burned a bunch of money on it and they probably won't pay for season 3 going forward, which means that the BBC is going to have to cough up all the money themselves, which I don't know if they're going to be able to do because they're running out of money because everybody's canceling their TV licenses and just watching Netflix. You know, so it's quite the situation here, right? So we're going to talk about it. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, check out D-Res. That's our podcast. We have a podcast out there. We're going to be doing more interviews and gaming news and, having more in-depth discussion. We're going to be talking about paranormal stuff over there. So check it out. We're not going to bitch as much about Doctor Who over on that show. This is coming from Den of Geek. They're doing damage control, too. The media is joining in. Doctor Who's future and the Disney deal, sorting the fact from the fiction. Last week, Deadline published a report into the current health of Doctor Who and its international distribution deal with Disney that left some people spooked. Are we still allowed to say that? Are we allowed to say that current year? I don't know. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to or not. The future of the Disney deal hangs in the balance. One anonymous source close to the production was reported as feeling it may not last beyond the initial 2 seasons. That's a reasonable position to take because the deal was initially only made for 2 seasons, and at the time of writing, no deal renewal announcement has been made public. The deal's future hangs in the balance in the same way that the future of a packet of Jaffa cakes on a supermarket shelf hangs in the balance because I've yet to buy and eat them. They're okay. Jaffa cakes are okay. They have them at Aldi's. You can get them at Aldi's. The orange ones are pretty good. They have orange and raspberry. I like the orange ones. I don't know why that's in this article. While casting down the future of the Bad Wolf BBC Disney partnership, several online responses have repeated an error that was debunked 18 months ago and reported as shadowy fan rumor, something that showrunner Russell T Davies made public last December. To point out any of this isn't to undermine the conclusions being drawn about Doctor Who's potentially insecure future at Disney. It's just to get the facts straight. We just have to get the facts straight on this, guys. It's fine. And look, I'm going to be honest. It might be. Disney is very good at spending money on shit that doesn't give them a return on their investment. See Willow. See Disney Star Wars. See so many examples of Disney just burning money, burning investor money, burning shareholder dollars. The Fox deal, one of the stupidest deals in media history, $71 billion. And what'd you get out of it? Well, you got the X-Men. Okay, cool. Are you going to make $71 billion off the X-Men? Doubtful. Not in the state that the comics are in. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine's going to do good, but $71 billion. We have a new Aliens movie coming out. I don't know how that's going to do. But they're very good at wasting money. Some sources did indeed estimate the budget to be around per episode 13 million. That seems awfully, is that right? $13 million per episode for Doctor Who? Wow. Some sources did indeed estimate this. In January of 2023, Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf executive producer Jane Tranter went on record with Doctor Who magazine to call the estimate inaccurate. It's been exaggerated. If that was the budget, I'd be speaking to you from my base on the moon. It does look a lot more expensive than Jodie Whittaker's era. I mean, you could see how they cut the budget from Peter Capaldi to Jodie Whittaker. Like her, especially the first season, it just looked like a drama, like a run of the mill drama show. And it seemed like they were going out of their way to avoid anything that required heavy special effects. Rosa Parks. Okay, we can do that. We just need a bus. You know, it's like we can do that. We can just plop the Doctor on Earth. Like we're going back to early John Pertwee, era Doctor Who. We're just going to plop her on Earth, and it's a lot cheaper that way. But it said Tranter reiterated that Bad Wolf were happy with the newly Disney-backed purse, describing it as a really good budget for us, but emphasizing that they're not Game of Thrones or the Rings of Power. Disney's editorial meddling. They're trying to debunk that. How far Disney's influence would extend editorially over Doctor Who has worried some fans since the distribution deal was announced. Would Disney insist on the addition of, say, a comedy robot dog or a blonde teenage girl? One instance of Disney's editorial interference cited in the Deadline piece is the inclusion of the scene in the 2023 Christmas special of The Church on Ruby Road, in which the Doctor is nearly crushed by a giant decorative snowman and then has a sweet exchange with a passing police officer about a marriage proposal. What? That scene, having been included at Disney's behest to provide exposition for new American viewers, is being reported as spreading a rumor. The chief culprit of the rumor is Russell T. Davies. Disney's priority list. The Deadline piece's opening gambit, since reported by other outlets, is that Doctor Who, having been almost completely absent from Disney's 2024 upfronts, may spin a yarn about the series' position in the Disney priority log. Disney's 2024 event was held on Tuesday, May 15th, 4 days after Gatwa's new season's international debut on May 11th. The lack of fanfare for Doctor Who at the event could well suggest a low place among Disney's priorities, but that place can't have been affected by the ratings performance being cited as a reason for perceived current lack of excitement from Disney. Yes, this is a time travel show, but when the upfronts happened, the ratings data didn't exist yet, except they did for the specials. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think Disney got the bang for their buck that they expected from the specials, because we had Russell T. Davies, we had David Tennant, and they got Disney favorite. I mean, you want to talk about Disney meddling. Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris is like Disney royalty. He always does the candlelight processional at Epcot. He's a massive Disney fan. And, for them to put an American in it like that is the big bad that, to me, it tells me Disney's like, yeah, NPH, he wants to be in Doctor Who. Put him in Doctor Who. But I think they expected a lot more. And the ratings weren't that great. They really were not that great. For David Tennant returning for the 60th anniversary, it wasn't good. I think they expected the internet to break, right? Like it was going to be like the biggest thing ever. And it really wasn't. So I think at that point, they're just like, yeah. Plus, they're looking at, I'm going to tell you, from a corporate standpoint, this is my personal opinion. This is conjecture. But they're going to look at like, yeah, we don't own this one. So we're not going to pimp this one as hard as we are the Disney-owned stuff because we just have an agreement with the BBC. But, those kinds of things come and go. And I have to wonder if that deal wasn't greenlit under somebody else. And they're just like, yeah, we're not spending as much on Disney Plus. And that's not conjecture. Disney said they're going to cut back the spending on Disney Plus. They've overspent. Apple said they've overspent on streaming, trying to compete with Netflix, and they can't beat them. Netflix is cutting back on streaming because they're comfortably number one. I personally do not see, unless they're getting a hell of a deal, I personally do not see Disney bankrolling another season of Doctor Who, especially even if it's half as much as what's been reported. It still adds up. And they're going to look at that like those dollars could be put toward a Disney-owned production. At the end of the day, we own it. They don't own Doctor Who yet. I don't know. But they don't own Doctor Who. So I don't see them pushing a bunch of money into a third season. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. I'm just saying from a business perspective, if this thing's not bringing the views, and they probably thought this was going to be their Game of Thrones or their House of the Dragon, and it's not. I would have, if I were Disney, I would have looked at it and I would have been like, hey, yeah, Doctor Who's really fallen off. But I think they were probably like, well, if we're bringing the showrunner back from when Doctor Who was the most popular, and we're bringing the most popular Doctor back, and that might have been Disney meddling too, because they left the regeneration up in the air. Jodie Whittaker filmed her her regeneration. Then they just put David Tennant in later, inexplicably regenerating into his own clothes. I don't understand how that works, but whatever. And, so I think that probably was a factor in why they gave them the money. They're like, oh yeah, if anybody can fix Doctor Who and get it back to what it was, it's Russell T Davies. And they might have looked at Game of Thrones. They might have looked at it and said, hey, Game of Thrones pissed off the fans with the last season or two, but then they came back swinging with House of the Dragon. So maybe Doctor Who can do the same thing. Maybe if we just put Russell T Davies in charge and bring David Tennant back, we can fix Doctor Who too, and it'll compete with, Game of Thrones. And that's not happening. So I don't know. I just feel like they're just not even, like, I'm not seeing much promotion at all for it other than online. I don't think they're spending the bucks to promote it. I think they're like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Den of Geek says there's little mention of this discussion about Doctor Who's imminent return to a panel at Comic-Con Hall H on Friday, July 26th. The crossover episode speculation caused by Russell T Davies joining Star Trek producer Alex Kurtzman in a joint Trek Who intergalactic friendship panel. Good luck with that. Paramount's getting sold at a fire sale price. Like, if Disney doesn't have any money for Doctor Who, Paramount sure as hell doesn't have any money for Star Trek. I mean, look, this is what is driving everything in entertainment right now. The money's gone. They all blew themselves up chasing streaming. I don't think that a lot of this stuff is going to get made. I think a lot of these shows that were announced are going to get canceled. Back to the ratings. Den of Geek says, a comparison widely repeated in the last week is that the average audience of the last full series led by Jodie Whittaker in 2021 was higher than that of the first led by Gatwa. It's undeniable, but then why are we arguing about it? But it does fail to mention the fairly important context that Whittaker's series aired in October and November when British TV viewing figures are higher, and it was in the summer and everybody's touching grass. Oh my God. David Tennant had specials in the spring and summer, if I remember correctly, and they did pretty well. My memory's a little foggy. I used to follow Doctor Who a lot more closely than I do now, but I do remember that. It's a major scare of this discussion is a prophesied catastrophe of the Disney deal not being renewed. If the BBC Disney deal doesn't get re-upped, jaws could hit the floor, bodies could hit the floor. They might, yes, but it wouldn't automatically signal the end of Doctor Who. If Disney collapsed tomorrow, Russell T Davies said, and we had to go back to making Doctor Who on a normal BBC budget, you know what? We'd rally round and make it, and suddenly the stories would become claustrophobic ghost stories. A lot of people would like that very much, so I'm saying you have to have the Disney deal. I'm not saying you have to have the Disney deal happen, but while it's happening elsewhere, I think it's unfair that it doesn't happen to Doctor Who. Yeah, and that's exactly what would happen. I mean, if the BBC if they continued Doctor Who, remember the BBC did pull the plug on Doctor Who, but it would get a massive downgrade in the production budget, and we would see more first season Jodie Whittaker type stories. Doctor Who visits a daycare, Doctor Who runs for city council, Doctor Who goes to the grocery store, Doctor Who, the TARDIS is broken, we've got another Who-mobile. Yeah, it's like, that's because the TARDIS costs money. We can't do that. We're just going to park it for a couple of seasons until we find some other sucker to bankroll the show. Yeah, so they said filming is wrapped on the next season. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea. It's supposed to start filming later this year, but has yet to be officially announced. Ncuti Gatwa is in a play until the end of next year. So even if they did a third season, he couldn't do it until next year. We don't know for absolute sure if the Disney international distribution deal will continue. If Ncuti Gatwa will appear in a third run, that we really, really hope he does. They said, is it going to happen? I'm going to have Jaffa cakes, whatever. Before doom saying, let's wait and see. Why do all of these geek outlets do this? I don't understand. And this, look, I'm not trying to single this author out. I'm not. But they all do this. Like, instead of criticizing the show, we could try saying nice things about it so it doesn't disappear. I mean, look, here's the reality. Science fiction is a luxury item. These shows are expensive. They really are. I mean, I think anybody who's been around for a while, and I think it just might be young naivete, but anyone who's been around for a while and seen the ups and downs of like science fiction, and there's a dearth of it for a while because it costs too damn much. Yeah, this happens. This happens all the time. And if there's not enough interest in the show, if there's not enough interest, in the show to sell merchandise, the show ends. And the reality is a lot of this nerd stuff, I think what's going to end it is the money running out. Everybody blew themselves up chasing streaming. And the weird thing is we didn't know a couple of years ago, everybody's complaining about all this really terrible science fiction. And it's going to lead to like no science fiction because those shows cost too much money. It's going to lead to a dearth in animation, dearth in sci-fi shows. And what are we going to do? I guess we're going to go back to watching reruns of older, better stuff. I've been watching Next Gen and Deep Space Nine reruns. And I'm happy because I'm watching this show, or these shows rather, Star Trek, old Star Trek. And I'm like, this was peak. We didn't know it was at the time, but it wasn't going to get much better than this. We had no idea. And back then, I remember when, Enterprise was winding down, like, gosh, someday there might not be any Star Trek and that's going to be awful. And I'm like, no, past self. It's going to be fine because the Star Trek that comes after this is going to be dog shit. So you're going to go back to watching this Star Trek. So that's look on the bright side. We've always got classic Doctor Who, right? We've got good or passable Doctor Who through Capaldi. And that's it. That's all we need. Doctor, I let you go. Is that what he said? Doctor, I release you. Yeah, that's it. We're done. We're done here. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.